Hi everyone, and now for your aviation weather segment. Shishaldo volcano is erupting again, and I have a photo from the webcam that overlooks the volcano. You can see the ash that's coming out, and there was some lightning we observed earlier this morning. The SIGMET for the area is surface to flight level 300, and the ash reported again this morning, that is Tuesday morning, is reported to be moving south at 35 knots. So for our flying weather tomorrow, we've got extensive IFR over the Bering Sea, all up through the Bering Strait, in the Chukchi Sea, and all along the coast of the North Slope, as well as a little bit out in the Gulf. Some marginal VFR has crept into the northern Gulf areas, as well as on up into the Copper River Basin. And then for tomorrow afternoon, we can still see still plenty of IFR over the Bering Sea, out over the Aleutians, and then up in the Chukchi Sea and just off the coast for the Beaufort Sea. Lots of marginal VFR all along the west coast, as well as marginal VFR into the Copper River Basin and all along the Gulf Coast. Looking at Thursday morning, again, very similar situation with coastal areas, generally IFR all the way from the Beaufort Sea on down through the Aleutians. And then we have marginal VFR along the west coast, on up into Cook Inlet, and then lots of the Gulf of Alaska. And then for Thursday afternoon, we can see that IFR has retreated a little bit off the coast, marginal VFR along the North Slope, into Kotzebue Sound, as well as all along the west coast, also the Alaska Peninsula, and then you have to go out in the Gulf, so we got some good VFR flying over much of the state. Looking at our pass reports, VFR for Anatuvik Pass, for Adigan Pass VFR, but note some thunderstorms off to the east. That area is still pretty far away, but you got to keep an eye on it. For Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, VFR becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon due to some fair weather cumulus. Also, we see that Rainy Pass VFR becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon, again due to some cumulus clouds building up. Windy Pass VFR becoming marginal VFR, and then well to the east we see an area of thunderstorms. Also Isabel Pass. Now some of those CBs, which is the cloud type for thunderstorms, could be actually getting into Isabel Pass. Again, marginal VFR conditions due to a lot of cumulus buildups. And then the same for Mentasta Pass, marginal VFR with some thunderstorms. And then Tahitna Pass, marginal VFR. Portage Pass, marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White Pass, both marginal VFR. And then looking at our freezing levels for Wednesday morning, we've got really quite high freezing levels over most of the state, above 120 on the flight level. And then as you go out into the Gulf, into that low pressure system, you can see it being dropped down to about 8,000 feet, well south of the oceans, freezing level 14,000 feet. So for our icing on Wednesday, an area of isolated moderate over Cook Inlet, as well as the Kenai Peninsula, on up into the Talkeetnos, and a little bit touching into the Copper River Basin, right up to the Alaska Range. That area is from 10,000 feet to 14,000 feet. And then for a more significant area of isolated moderate and some considerable moderate over the Bering Sea, we've got flight level 120 to flight level 180 for that icing there. And then for our jet stream on Wednesday, quite a pretty light jet, but still look for northerlies out over the Gulf all the way up to 95 knots. Southerlies when you get to the east side of the Gulf, and that'll be about 75 knots or so. And then as we get further out in the Bering Sea, you can see about westerlies 75 to 85 knots kicking in, and then it all becomes northerly, just like that ash is moving there, all the way up to 70 knots at 30,000 feet. And then for 9,000-foot winds out over the Bering Sea, you can again see the westerlies kicking in about 50 knots, dropping off to about 45 as you get a little bit further north, and then becoming northerlies over the Alaska Peninsula, roughly about 50 knots or so, and also the western side of the Gulf, about 45 knots or so. And then when you get to the eastern side of the Gulf, it again becomes southerly around that low pressure system there, and that you've got about 35 knots coming up through Dixon Entrance. And then for a 3,000-foot winds, not much to speak of over mainland Alaska, a little bit up through the Chukchi Sea, about 35 knots or so. And then when we look out over the Bering Sea, westerlies about 55 knots or so. If you happen to get to St. Paul, that's a little bit of a headwind. And so finally, for our turbulence on Wednesday, we've got surface of 3,000 feet up by Point Hope and then down through the Bering Strait. And then also we have a significant area of isolated moderate to considerable moderate out over the Alaska Peninsula, up to Kodiak Island and across the Aleutians, surface of 4,000 feet, and add in a little bit of low-level wind shear as well. And then for the eastern part of the Gulf, look for a little bit of surface to 6,000 feet with some isolated moderate about Prince of Wales Island or so. So that's it for your aviation weather. Thanks for tuning in.